Hi, my name is Megan, and this is Everything Lit. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm talking about my January wrap-up. I read 14 books in January, which is pretty good. That's one of my higher months. So let's hope we can keep the momentum going in February, but let's talk about what I read. This is going to be kind of rapid fire, quick. So I started off with some poetry because I'm still on my poetry journey, and I read Not Today, Satan, Maybe Tomorrow by Andrew Schaffer. And I picked the poetry prompt out of my little jar, so I read this for it, and I did end up giving this 4 stars. And Vino is about to go ham on the reflection off of this book. Don't do it. Don't do it. These are basically satire poems of Instagram poetry, you know? So there are little drawings. It's called #sponsored poem, and it says, if cowboys had wings, they wouldn't need horses. Ambien, stop thinking and start sleeping. Like, it's really gorgeously, like look at those end papers. But I did give it 4 stars. I thought they were funny. I thought they were like self-aware. This is my kind of poetry, kind of poking fun at traditional poetry and people who are like so, you know, about poetry. You know, if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you don't. I did get it. I will say it still like wasn't like moving poetry. This is like making fun poetry, and I do love some satire. So if you like satire, I think especially if you do read some Instagram poetry and you can kind of recognize that some of it's like ingenuine. If you can recognize that some of it is disingenuous, then this could be up your alley. Ooh, the boy himself, just still staring at the wall. Sir, it's gone. It's gone. Next, I read That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. And I read this for Books and Lala's book club. They're talking about it in March, along with another book, so I just got ahead of the game. So this is about a spice trader in this kind of fantasy world, and demons come out at night, but this is also like a romance, kind of a smutty romance. So this was a cute enough romance, right? So one night, Cinnamon is on her way home from the bar, and she accidentally saves a demon by throwing cinnamon in his face. And they kind of go on this adventure to save other demons. And, you know, it was cute. The demon, we had some reveals that were nice. It was more plot heavy than I expected because I expected it to be just full smut. But there was a bit of smut. I liked the dynamic. I liked the found family aspect when they met some other people. But overall, I gave it 3 stars because it wasn't as smutty as I expected. The sex scenes themselves weren't that great. The banter, top tier, but, you know, it's just kind of mid. And then it got worse. I read Sea Witch Rising, which finishes out this duology, and this is by Sarah Henning. I gave it 2 stars. It's an unnecessary sequel. Like, the first one felt kind of original and different, and it is a little more, you can't bang against that. It is a Little Mermaid retelling. So then the first one is kind of like, it's just called Sea Witch, and it's about the Sea Witch and how she became the Sea Witch. And then this one is kind of a straight up Little Mermaid retelling. Her sister goes on land to save her. Like, it was fine. The writing was fine, but I just like was not invested in these characters. I listened to the audiobook. The audiobook was okay, but like I didn't care, and it didn't need a sequel, and I probably shouldn't have read it. The romances I did not care about. The action like scenes and the stakes were pretty good, but like there was not anything in this for me to like root for or hold on to. So then I read Wondersmith, The Calling of Morgan Crow. I finally got to this. This is a middle grade series, second in the series. It was so good. And I got the prompt a middle grade out of my jar, and I did read one. So winning for me. The first book in this series is about Morgan Crow being swept away to this magical land of Nevermore, and she competes in these trials to become part of this secret society. And in this one, she's learning more about this secret society and going to a school in this new world, and it was very good. A little long. Overall, I really liked it, and I believe that I vlogged this because I read it for Winterween. So I will link that vlog down below if you want more in-depth thoughts. But basically, whimsical, fun, good time. Morgan is just such an easy character to root for. I ended up giving this like 4.5 stars, rounding up to 5. Then I read Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. So this is, if you know Jurassic Park, like you know about Jurassic Park. Basically, this rich guy and his company figure out genetics and find dinosaur DNA in some amber from a mosquito, and they create a theme park around dinosaurs with living dinosaurs there. What could go wrong? The book is so much like action techno thriller. It was insane. It was stressful. I've seen the movie multiple times, but the book was still stressful. So, I mean, if you love the movies, I think it's definitely worth going back to the source material because stressy. It was intense, fascinating, very science-based. It talks a lot about chaos theory, as the movie does, and it talks about the actual computer coding and has like the computer sequences. I kind of skipped over some of that because like, what am I getting out of that? Nothing. It's for the science nerds, or the computer science nerds, I should say. I like the movie better, I think, in the end. The movie made good changes and made you root for certain characters. The little girl in this book, Lex, obnoxious. The characters weren't fully fleshed out, but for a lot of it, you didn't really need that. The pacing was off a little bit. It just felt like it should have ended sooner. I had a lot of like ups and downs because Jurassic Park was 4 stars. The Brilliance of Stars was 2 stars. This is by Janelle Sizalewski, and this is a historical fiction action adventure story. It's called a Jack and Ivy novel. And basically, in 1914, World War I, these 2 orphans, Ivy and Philip, they have stuck together at this orphanage. They're looking out for each other. They stumble upon a Russian spy and some other guy making a deal, and they get pulled into this secret organization and recruited basically to help, you know, with the efforts of World War I and sabotaging the other countries. While I liked part of it, I liked the beginning, the romance. Jack is like part of this organization already. He's just a couple years older than Ivy. And first of all, it's kind of an expectations versus what I actually got, but it's also like fanfic vibes. Let's talk about my expectations, right? I expected World War I, espionage. I'm thinking Wonder Woman, battling, behind the scenes, pretty dresses, like good banter, because on the back you find out that like Jack and Ivy get married. Like, you know that from the beginning. So there wasn't any tension in the romance, and also the romance was just not there. I wanted it. I wanted it to be this epic, wonderful historical fiction romance, but like they have one moment when they first meet and she's like 16 or 17 and he's like 19, so they're really young, which I didn't realize because this is an adult romance, but they're really young, and then they have this one moment together that everything kind of hinges on. Like, it skips forward a couple years, and then like we don't get to see them falling in love. We don't get to see their affection. It feels very sudden. These like big declarations and overblown feelings are not earned. They are not built up enough. It just drove me insane. And then the action was like, okay. And then you get to the end and they're like following the leads of this mystery, and it is so Captain America coded, like Captain America the Winter Soldier coded. Like, you've got Philip as Steve, Jack is Bucky, and Ivy is Peggy, except it's Peggy and Bucky in this. And like the author in the back really does like talk about how she was inspired by the Winter Soldier and she was inspired by Sebastian Stan's portrayal and she loves Bucky Barnes. And like, I get it, girl. I am a Bucky stan all day. But if I wanted to read some Bucky fan fiction, I could just do that, you know? Like, I could just do that and read it with the pairing I like, Bucky and Steve. And in this, I didn't really like Philip as a character. Jack was okay. Ivy, I liked some of the characters, but like the romance, what I went into this for, the romance was not earned. And then I think I read some reviews of the second book and I think it like skips ahead a couple years and I'm just like, not about that. I'm not going to read the second book in this series. And if I do, I'm getting it from the library. But I'm probably not because I know what's going to happen. I've seen Captain America. So I gave this 2 stars. Big yikes. So sorry if you hear random banging. Vino is he's sitting right there. And he's just smacking his tail on the table that I have you guys on. So sorry, not sorry. Next, I read Cruel Seduction by Katee Robert. I was trying to catch up in the Dark Olympus series because I met her and got her to sign my copy of Midnight Ruin, which is very exciting, but I have not read it yet. I read Cruel Seduction. This is the 5th in the series. The plot mechanics are taking off. Aphrodite and Hephaestus are having a political marriage. They've like just met. He's just taken over the role of Hephaestus after the previous book. And so they're doing an arranged marriage and he starts flirting with her ex that she's still in love with, and she starts seducing his best friend just to, you know, get back at each other a little bit. And then the 4 of them are kind of like, you know, maybe this would work with all of us together. So it's not like fully all 4 of them together. It's like Aphrodite and Pandora and Aphrodite and Hephaestus and Aphrodite and Adonis, but also Adonis and Hephaestus. You know, they're not all together, but it's still good. The sex scenes were good. The plot was good. I gave it 4 stars. Katee Robert is just so easy to read and so delicious. Next, I read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I finally got to a Brandon Sanderson book, and this is about the final empire where like 1,000 years ago, the chosen one failed basically, and the evil emperor took over. And it is about this like ragtag band of people with special powers who are trying to overthrow the government basically. And Mistborns have special abilities where like if you swallow certain metals, you can like burn them and have power, like extra abilities. You can push and pull things toward you. You can manipulate people's emotions. Some people can only burn one metal and some people, Mistborns, can burn all of them. So I mostly listened to the audiobook for this and it was really good. I will probably listen to the audiobooks for the other 2 in the series and maybe the rest of them because they are pretty chunk. They'll take a while to read. They'll take less time with an audiobook. I gave this 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. I think the world is well built. The characters really, you rooted for them. It's got found family. And it did take me a little while to get into it. Probably maybe like 60 or 70 pages to really get into the story. But once our like main character, Vin, got on screen and like we got more of her backstory, then I was into it. I was involved. I loved it. I can't wait to continue on with the series. Then I read You Just Need to Lose Weight and 19 Other Myths About Fat People by Aubrey Gordon. This was nonfiction. Oh boy, did it make me sad and angry. And Aubrey Gordon is basically writing essays to debunk 19 myths about fat people. Like, you just need to lose weight. If you exercise more, you'll lose weight. What are some of the other myths that like there is like fat bias doesn't exist? Doctors are a good resource and they're unbiased against fat people. And so it really talked about anti-fat bias and how it shows up in life and how fat people are discriminated against. It was hard to read studies done where not only normal people but medical professionals think that because you are fat, you are literally worth less. You are lazy and you are a slob and you are useless and stupid and just awful. Like, people look at you and because you're fat, they're like, you're a piece of shit. Like, okay, thank you. Good to know. I think Aubrey did a really good job of debunking these myths, doing the research, pulling in studies, and how we need to work toward a world that accommodates fat people instead of telling them to just lose weight if they want respect, because that's horrible. Some of the reviews were definitely like, this is a anti-fat primer, or like doesn't really talk enough about these different issues. And I think that's kind of the point. Like, the point of this book is to introduce people to anti-fat bias and make you interrogate your own biases. So it has like questions at the end of every section or every myth saying like, do you think this about fat people? Have you ever experienced this? Why do you think this is? And just kind of making you think about your own biases. And that's wonderful. Like, this is a starter. This is the way to begin that work of fighting bias. And I thought it was really well done. And it definitely made me think about some internalized bias, because like in the fat activist world, I would be considered like a small fat, which is funny. But then you have like larger fat people who are even more discriminated against, right? Because like some places only sell clothing up to like 3XL when people need 4 and 5X. One of the really interesting essays, if someone complains about you being fat and sitting next to them, you could get thrown off the plane, like not in the air, but you can get deplaned and just stranded at the airport if you can't fit or the seatbelt won't close. It all depends on the flight attendants on your flight, whether or not they will kick you off that plane or not. So if they have anti-fat bias, if they are biased against fat people and have those thoughts that we are like lazy or worthless or stupid or whatever, then they're gonna kick you off the plane and be like, it's gonna be a better flight without you, which is so gross. And it kind of unlocked a new anxiety about flying for me, because I've not had issues with seatbelts, but you know, I take up space, and I've definitely sat next to another large person, and you know, we're thigh to thigh. Crazy. Anyway, all that to say, it made me interrogate some of my internalized anti-fat bias. And I think it's a really good book to read to start that journey of thinking about how you treat fat people or think of fat people, going along with that weight loss culture and diet culture, because it's gnarly out there. So anyway, I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was fantastic, and I would like to read more by Aubrey Gordon. I finally got to Undead Girl Gang by Lily Anderson. This is YA. This is about a girl in high school. Her best friend died tragically in the river. They think she killed herself. Just the day before, there had been 2 funerals for 2 other girls who they thought killed themselves. And our main character is convinced that her best friend was actually murdered. And she finds this spell book and accidentally resurrects not only her best friend, but the 2 other girls. So she has 3 zombies walking around, and they have to figure out who killed them, because the spell is only good for 7 days. So they're not back forever. They've got 7 days to figure out who the murderer was. And it's fantastic. Like, I'm so mad I didn't read it sooner. The found family, the character growth, the exploration of grief, and getting a chance to see your friend again was just fantastic. This is what I wanted out of The Lost Girls. It was so good. The action was good. The world building was good. I liked the characters. I was rooting for them. And the 2 other girls who like died were kind of bullies, and they did not get along with these 2 other girls who are like basically the main characters. But you get to see their growth, and they become this little girl gang, and it's good. It's really good. And our main character like learns about her power, but she still has to, after those 7 days are up, deal with a world without her best friend, and it was good. The writing was also really fun. Our main character is sarcastic and witchy, and she is fat, and she is Latinx. Ended up giving it 4 stars, and I read it for Bookspot pre-2022. So I met that prompt. Then I read Catboy by Benji Nate. This is a graphic novel, and it is about a girl who wishes that her cat was a human, and they can be best friends and do stuff together. And her wish is granted, except only kind of, because he gets turned into a cat human, and the art is really cute. They have these little like fashion panels in between each story. Like, look at how cute. And it's just about, you know, being best friends with your cat, and your cat getting you a gift that is a gift to them, you know, like dead birds. And it deals with money. Our main character is an artist and trying to make money out of art. Like, look at how cute. I do love the art style. So I gave this 4 stars. I think the things that kept it from being 5 stars, every now and then it did creep me out a little bit. The art of the cat as a human is just, it's a little unsettling at times. And the other thing that kept it from being 5 stars, and that's kind of on me, is that I expected it to be like one full story, to have like an arc, but this is just a bunch of little stories put together. Like each section is just a little experience of having a best friend who's a cat. And it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't make a point, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just a nice way to spend a couple hours, but I kind of expected it to be you know, a story with an arc. My favorite one for sure is the one where they have like a little sleepover, because her cat, this is Olive, her cat makes friends with some other girls and they all have a sleepover, and it's just really sweet and nostalgic. And there's one where she takes her cat to her art class, and he's like really good, and that's fun. I also kind of love the like gender queer representation of the cat, because he is a boy but he's a cat, right? So like his name is Henry. Here you can see he's a little kitty, and then he's not a little kitty. But I really like that just general gender queer existing, because he's a cat. Like, he doesn't care. He just shared clothes with Olive and was friends with her friends, and it was really sweet. A major disappointment. I read The Breakup Tour by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegemann Broca, and I gave this a 2.5 stars. I rounded it up to 3, but let me tell you, what is this? So I really liked the book by these authors that I read last year called Do I Know You? This one was not it. First of all, second chance romances rarely work for me, but this is about Riley Wynn, who is a big famous star. She's just gone through a divorce. She was married to this guy for like 2 or 3 months. Their relationship was like 5 months total. And she's kind of this is very Taylor Swift inspired. So she's dated a lot of men. She's written some music. This is like her 2nd or 3rd album. It's called The Breakup Record, and each song represents a different relationship and that like breakup. And the main hit, the standout single, is about her college boyfriend that no one really knows about. Her ex-husband is taking credit and being like, the song is about me. Aren't I lucky to inspire such art? And she gets really mad about this because she's like, it's not about you. So she goes to talk to her ex-boyfriend for the first time in 10 years and asks him to let her tell everyone the song is about him. And he's like, no, I don't think I want to do that. But then he is running a retirement home and it's kind of failing. So he's like, you know what, if I go on tour with you, play the piano and play during this song and kind of like play into the narrative of like, oh, this song is about me, and like let the fans kind of figure it out. He'll get money. He'll get a lot of money to save this house, and he can do what he wants. The setup is so good. Like, you've got forced proximity, second chance romance on the road because they're on tour, and you have all the opportunities of these different places they're going and like hotel rooms. And I'm thinking Perfect by One Direction, you know? I'm thinking the very first night, you know? They don't know about the hotel room, like, and it wasn't that, you know? Our main characters barely interact. They don't talk about their issues. So the reasons that they broke up in the first place feel like they're never resolved, really. And it's not like a matter of age or maturity or whatever. It was a matter of like place and time and timing, but the timing like didn't get better, it got worse, because he wants to stay at the retirement home and like run that and be there and not just be on tour with her. And they like talked and like related to each other through the music, but it was so circumstantial. Like, they didn't fully talk it out, and they didn't have good banter, and they didn't like, it was so rooted in their past that it was so hard to see how they were going to work. And I feel like it never actually truly showed me how they were going to work together. It just was so unsatisfying. And actually, I wanted to DNF it. During the third act breakup, I didn't care if they got together anymore. I was not rooting for them at all by the time we got to the third act breakup. And that's bad. This is a romance. I should want the two people to end up together. And I was like, no, I don't think they're good together. I think they'd be happier finding other people. They're just so hung up on each other. I should have DNF'd this. I almost did, but I didn't. I gave it 2.5 stars. And this counts for my prompt, book bought in 2024, because this is a brand new release. It just came out January 23rd. So 2 more books. Gotta go quick. I think the heater's kicking on. So I read Escaping Mr. Rochester by L.L. McKinney. This is a Jane Eyre retelling where Jane and Bertha team up to escape Mr. Rochester because they figure out really early that he's manipulative and trying to get their money. And Bertha is, of course, locked in the attic. We know that pretty early on because she is a point of view character. So we get both of their points of view. And then it's a female-female romance, so they kind of get together, and it was fast-paced and really good. So I really liked this retelling. I thought it was done really well. There were really good images and moments that were callbacks to the original, and I think that my only critique or my only drawback was that I would have liked it to be longer. I would like it to explore more how this man like sunk his talons in and manipulated these women, because he comes off all charming and nice and like gets them to do what he wants, and then if they don't, he gets angry and mean, and he has all the power and they have none, because they're both women of color as well as women in this kind of ambiguous historical time. Because it doesn't really tell us. I think it kind of relies on us knowing the original or knowing about the original and putting it in that time period without showing us. So I would have just liked it to have been longer and maybe a little subtler, but like it was still good. I gave it 4 stars. A great YA romance, a great gothic YA retelling of one of my favorite books. And finally, I snuck in one more graphic novel, Snow Glass Apples by Neil Gaiman and Colleen Doran. This was recommended by Selena at Vampires Read. I really loved it. It is spooky and creepy and fairy tale. It's very short, but like that's a heart, bro. What's really funny, some of the 1-star reviews are like, this shouldn't be for kids. It looks like it's for kids. Like, that's a heart on the cover, bleeding. I don't think this looks like it's for kids just because it has pictures, my guy. The art is just stunning. Like, look at this art. Absolutely gorgeous. Snow White be creepy as hell. Like, she looks creepy. It was phenomenal. So this is a Snow White story, a Snow White retelling, and Snow White likes blood and maybe, you know, has cold skin. And how long has she been 17? A while. I'm just kidding. She does grow up. Yeah, it's very creepy. The prince, big ol' yikes. I don't really know what to say about it. This is all vibes. This is vibes and spooky and fairy tale. And it's fantastic. I gave it 5 stars. Those were the 14 books I read in January, and I did get to read a lot of the January releases that I was excited for. So if I can keep up on that, love it. And I'm using my library a lot more, and it's going really well. I should do like a favorite and least favorite every video. I think my favorite book that I read this month was Mistborn. The world building was just phenomenal. The action, you really sink into the story, and it's long enough that you can really get into it and be in the story. And then my least favorite was definitely The Brilliance of Stars. I think that the other books that I rated low could appeal to a lot of people. And while this one could also appeal to a lot of people, it was, the romance was so unearned. It's kind of tied. Oh, I already put it back. It's kind of tied with The Breakup Tour. But The Breakup Tour is more disappointing, and this is just not good. So let me know, what was your favorite book that you read this month, or your least favorite? So thank you for watching. If you like this video, you could click that like button. You could subscribe, but really, you can do whatever you want. And I'll see you next time.